All right, let's dive into Hunter x Hunter. We've got a ton of material to cover, so we'll really try to get to the heart of what makes this anime tick.
Yeah, there's a reason people keep coming back to it. It's got those classic shonen action elements, but it also goes deeper, asking some really thought-provoking questions about morality and strength and what it means to be human.
Right. And for anyone just starting out, the story follows Gon Freecss, this kid who wants to become a hunter just like his dad.
And when we say hunter, we're not just talking about tracking animals in the woods. These are like elite adventurers. Think explorers, treasure hunters, even bounty hunters sometimes. They're basically taking on the most dangerous and challenging tasks out there.
So Gon goes on this journey to become a hunter, and it all starts with the hunter exam, which, from what I hear, is no walk in the park.
It's brutal. It pushes these applicants to their absolute limits, physically and mentally and even ethically. The exam itself is like a microcosm of the series. You watch these characters go through these crazy trials, and you can't help but wonder how you would react in those situations.
And it's during this insane exam that Gon meets his crew, right? Killua, Kurapika, Leorio, they all become this tight-knit group.
Exactly. You've got Killua, this assassin kid with a surprisingly good heart, Leorio, who wants to be a doctor to help people, and Kurapika, who's driven by revenge against this group called the Phantom Troupe.
So each of them has their own reasons for wanting to become a hunter.
And their journeys intertwine with Gon's in really interesting ways. You see these relationships evolve as they face tougher and tougher challenges. It really makes you think about who you would connect with in that world.
I mean, on the surface, it might seem like your typical shonen anime, right? Epic battles, superpowers, that kind of thing. But it's the characters and the moral dilemmas they grapple with that really set Hunter x Hunter apart.
Yeah, take Gon, for example. His motivation, finding his dad, seems simple enough. But that desire leads him down some pretty morally ambiguous paths. He has to make these difficult choices, and they can have some serious consequences.
It's refreshing, honestly. You don't get those typical black and white heroes here. Gon makes mistakes, he struggles, and that just makes him feel more relatable.
Totally. And then you've got Killua, trying to escape his family's legacy of being assassins and figure out who he is outside of that. Classic coming-of-age stuff, but Hunter x Hunter handles it with so much depth, it makes you really consider if it's even possible to break free from your past.
And speaking of unique, we can't forget about Nen. This power system, it's unlike anything I've seen in other anime. It's all about personality. It's like your inner self determines your powers.
Imagine that. Your deepest desires, your fears, your personality traits, they all shape your abilities. So it's not just about punching harder or running faster. It's about understanding yourself, your strengths, and using those to your advantage.
So like Gon's straightforward personality translates into his powerful Jajinkin, and Killua's assassin training manifests in his lightning-fast Nen abilities.
Exactly. And as they change, their Nen changes with them. It reflects their internal growth, adding this whole other dimension to the fights and the characters.
It's not just about fighting, though, right? Nen can be used for all sorts of things, from healing to manipulating objects to even controlling people's minds. It's a system with limitless possibilities.
Exactly. And speaking of limitless possibilities, the world that Togashi created in Hunter x Hunter is massive. You've got these sprawling cities like Your New City, and then you have this mysterious uncharted territory called the Dark Continent.
Yeah, the Dark Continent. That place is shrouded in mystery and danger. It's said to hold secrets that could rewrite history, creatures that defy imagination. Even for experienced hunters, it's this ultimate frontier.
It represents the unknown, the pursuit of knowledge, pushing boundaries, but also risking everything in the process.
You can't help but want to jump into that world and explore it yourself.
And speaking of exploring, we should dive into some specific story arcs that really highlight what makes Hunter x Hunter so special.
Absolutely. Like the Your New City arc, right? Where we see Kurapika's quest for revenge against the Phantom Troupe come to a head.
Ah, the Phantom Troupe. They're not your typical villains. They're these incredibly skilled thieves, each with their own unique abilities and motivations. They even have their own code of honor, which makes them weirdly compelling.
So it's not as simple as good guys versus bad guys.
Not at all. Your New City is a whirlwind of action, intrigue, and emotional turmoil. Kurapika is confronting his past, struggling with the desire for vengeance, and it raises some deep questions about justice and what it truly costs.
Sounds intense. And I know the Chimera Ant arc is another one that fans always talk about.
Oh yeah, that one gets heavy. things get really real.
Yeah.
You're not just dealing with fights and power-ups anymore. It becomes an exploration of what it means to be human.
Okay, so break that down. What are the chimera ants?
They're this species that evolves at a crazy fast rate. They're incredibly strong, intelligent, and they pose a serious threat to humanity. But it's not just a mindless monster of the week situation. The Chimera Ant King, Meruem, he goes through this incredible transformation that challenges your ideas of good and evil.
So they're not just mindless monsters.
Nope. And his relationship with this human girl, Kamuki, it's one of the most beautiful and tragic parts of the series. It shows you that connection, empathy, can exist even in the most unlikely of places.
And through all this, Gon and Killua's friendship is at the core of the series, right?
It's the heart and soul. They have such different personalities, but their shared experiences create this bond that's both endearing and inspiring. It's a reminder of the power of connection, especially when facing these impossible challenges.
And Hunter x Hunter doesn't just have great heroes, it has some fantastic villains, too. They're not just evil for the sake of being evil. They've got depth, they've got motivations, sometimes you even see a glimmer of vulnerability.
Like Krollo Lucifer, the leader of the Phantom Troupe. He's ruthless, capable of some awful things, but he's also got this weird charisma and loyalty to his comrades that makes him strangely likable.
You can almost understand his perspective, even if you don't agree with his actions.
Exactly. And then there's Hisoka, who's just in a category of his own. He's driven by this desire to fight strong opponents, and you never know whose side he's on.
That must keep things pretty interesting.
Oh, he's a wild card for sure.
Yeah.
He adds this constant element of surprise. You never know what he's going to do next, and that's part of what makes Hunter x Hunter so gripping.
We've talked a lot about the story and the characters, but the animation is worth mentioning, too.
Oh, absolutely. The 2011 adaptation by Madhouse is just beautiful. The fight scenes in particular are stunning. They're so well choreographed. You really see each character's unique nen abilities come to life.
And the soundtrack is another standout element, right?
Yoshihisa Hirano's music is epic. It perfectly captures the mood of each scene, whether it's a heart-pounding action sequence or a quiet moment of reflection. The music just adds so much depth and emotion.
So it's clear that Hunter x Hunter is much more than just your average shonen anime.
Yeah, it definitely defies expectations. It's a world of adventure, intrigue, complex characters, and thought-provoking themes that will stick with you long after you finish watching.
There's so much more to uncover, though. I feel like we could talk about Nen all day. There's so much to unpack there.
Right. It's such a well-thought-out system. Like we said, it all ties back to personality, which makes it so much more interesting than just, oh, this guy can shoot fireballs and this girl can fly.
Yeah, I remember when I first started watching, I was trying to figure out, like, is there a pattern? Can you predict someone's powers based on their personality?
Well, to some extent, yeah. Remember those 6 Nen categories we talked about? Each one represents a different personality type. It's almost like Togashi created a personality test, where the results determine your superpower.
Okay, so remind me again, how does that work? How does someone's personality actually influence their Nen abilities?
So let's take Gon again. He's straightforward, honest, kind of wears his heart on his sleeve. All those qualities make him an enhancer. They're all about amplifying their physical strength and aura output.
Which totally fits with his fighting style, like that whole Janken thing. It's all about channeling that raw energy into a powerful attack.
Exactly. And then you have Killua, who's the complete opposite in a lot of ways. He's quick, precise, almost stealthy because of his assassin training. He's a transmuter, which means he can change the properties of his aura.
That explains his lightning-fast speed and those electric attacks. It's like his Nen is an extension of who he is at his core.
And that pattern continues with the other categories, too. You've got emitters who can detach and control their aura over long distances. Manipulators can control objects or even people with their Nen.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one Phantom Troupe member, Shalnark, with that creepy ability to control people like puppets.
Right. Perfect example of a manipulator. Then you've got conjurers who can create physical objects out of their aura, like weapons or tools. And finally, there are the specialists, whose powers are unique and don't really fit into any of the other categories.
So it's not just about who can hit the hardest. Nen opens up all these strategic possibilities, right?
Oh yeah, it gets really complex and interesting, especially when you see characters combining different Nen techniques or using their powers in creative ways. And what makes it even more interesting is that it's not static. It can evolve.
Wait, so a character's Nen abilities can change?
Absolutely. As characters go through challenges, they learn, they grow, and their understanding of Nen deepens. They can refine their existing abilities or even develop completely new techniques that better reflect their growth. It's like Nen itself is a metaphor for personal potential. You're not stuck in one place. You can always push your limits and become more than you were before.
So it's not just a cool power system, it's actually tied to some deeper themes about personal growth and self-discovery.
Right. And that ties into one of the biggest themes of the series, the idea of choice. Nen gives you power, but it's up to you how you use it.
We see that with Gon, right? He's so determined to achieve his goals, but that determination, amplified by Nen, can also lead him down some dangerous paths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hunter doesn't shy away from the consequences of using Nen for selfish or destructive reasons. We see characters who succumb to the allure of power, who lose sight of their values, and it never ends well.
It's like a cautionary tale reminding you that power without control, without a sense of responsibility, can be really dangerous.
And that's why the relationship between Gon and Killua is so important. They both have incredible potential, but they also have to learn to control their power, to use it wisely. And they help each other with that.
Killua, with his assassin background, he's always struggling with those darker impulses. And Gon, even with his good intentions, sometimes he lets his emotions get the better of him.
They balance each other out. They challenge each other to be better, and they learn from each other's mistakes.
Which makes their friendship even more powerful. They're not just buddies. They're helping each other navigate this complex world of Nen and make the right choices.
And speaking of complex, we have to talk about the villains again. Hunter x Hunter just does villains so well. They're not just these one-dimensional bad guys. They have depth, they have their own motivations, and sometimes they even make you question whose side you're on.
I mean, the Phantom Troupe, they're a group of criminals.
Yeah.
Straight up. But they also have this code of honor, a weird sense of loyalty to each other. It's messed up, but fascinating.
They're a great example of how Hunter x Hunter blurs the lines between good and evil. You can see their humanity even in their darkest moments. And then you have Hisoka, who's just Hisoka.
He's a force of nature, isn't he?
Totally unpredictable. You never know what he's going to do next, who he's going to align with. But he always adds this element of chaos and intrigue to the story.
It keeps you guessing, that's for sure.
Gogashi is really good at that.
Yeah.
He's constantly subverting expectations. He makes you question your assumptions about good and evil, strength and weakness.
Which is part of what makes Hunter x Hunter so captivating. It's not just an action-packed adventure. It's a story about human nature, about the choices we make, and the consequences that follow.
And that's something we can all relate to, even if we don't have Nen powers in real life.
It makes you think about the challenges you face in your own life, the choices you make, and how those choices shape who you are. It's crazy to think how much Hunter x Hunter makes you think about things that go way beyond the screen.
Yeah, it's not just mindless entertainment. It gets you thinking about yourself, about the world, about power and responsibility.
All this talk about Nen and how it's tied to your personality, it really makes you wonder, like, what if Nen was real? What kind of Nen would I have?
Right. Imagine that. You wake up one day and boom, you've got these incredible abilities based on your deepest desires, your fears, your personality quirks.
I'd be curious, but also kind of scared. You know, like, what if my Nen reflected some part of me that I don't really want to face?
That's a valid concern. I mean, it'd be a huge responsibility, figuring out how to control these powers, how to use them ethically.
I think I'd be tempted to try and hide it at first, just observe, see what I could do without anyone knowing.
Makes sense. But eventually, you'd have to make a choice, right? Do you embrace your Nen, try to master it, maybe even use it to help others, or do you try to suppress it, pretend it's not there?
It's like that whole with great power comes great responsibility thing, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, the power is literally an extension of who you are.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so compelling. It's not just some external force you're wielding. It's a part of you.
We see that struggle play out with Gon and Killua, right? They're constantly trying to figure out how to use their Nen responsibly, how to make the right choices.
And they don't always succeed. They make mistakes, they face consequences, and that's what makes their journey so relatable.
It's a reminder that even with amazing powers, we're still human. We're all flawed, we all make mistakes, but it's how we learn from those mistakes that defines us.
Hunter x Hunter doesn't give you easy answers. It presents you with these complex situations, morally gray characters, and it forces you to think critically about what you would do in those situations.
Which is part of why I love it so much. It's not just a story you watch, it's a story you participate in, you know? It makes you question your own values, your own beliefs.
It's a reminder that life isn't always black and white. There are shades of gray, and sometimes the right choice isn't always clear.
So to everyone listening, I think the big question Hunter x Hunter leaves us with is this. What's your Hunter exam? What are those challenges in your life that test you, that push you to your limits?
And how can you use your own strengths, your own unique abilities to overcome those challenges and become the best version of yourself?
It's been a blast diving deep into Hunter x Hunter with you all.
Thanks for coming along on this journey.
Until next time, keep exploring those stories that make you think, that make you feel, and that remind you of the power of human connection.